I want to tell you a story. In fact, that's kind of how I want to open up. Some of you young people don't realize and don't know that there was a year called 1982. Some of you older ones may remember that year. There was this church in 1982 that decided that they were going to have a 10-year celebration. Okay? And in this celebration, they were going to invite lots of people. They were going to have a big special dinner. They were going to have a special service. They were going to go all out. And at the end of the service, they were going to go even to the next step. They wanted everybody who came, everybody who was in attendance to go outside, and they were going to park a big bus across the road. And the bus was brown, for those of us who remember. They parked this big bus, and they put a photographer on top of the bus. And they said, we're going to put everybody in this picture. Well, on a side note, there was a set of parents. And this set of parents decided to dress their two boys in white. Now, one of the boys was extremely adorable. The other one was kind of iffy. You can figure out which one's which. But needless to say, this picture time came. They decided to push all the kids up front, and they took this picture. And every time I'm in this building, I think of this picture. And yes, I'm the one who can't see because the sun was very bright that day. And I think I was 6, maybe. The non-adorable one is my brother. He's beside me. He's the shorter one. But we stand out like neon every time I see that picture. And the last time I was here, I took a quick picture of it. And if you are in that picture in this room right now and you don't see yourself, and maybe because it was such a wide picture, I cropped you out, and I'm sorry. But there was a lot of people in that picture. And that picture, wherever it's still in the building, go find it. And if you're in it, find yourself. My parents were here first service, and my mom is in the picture, kind of like dead center. My dad's way in the back, and some of you all who are a little bit of age, I won't say old, but of older age, you remember this picture. This church has been here a long time, and this church has been able to minister and touch the lives of a lot of people for a long time. And the fact that we have a room full of kids who are working and talking and not being perfectly quiet is so amazing. Because, and I don't really talk, this isn't even in my sermon, but let me tell you what, when kids stop sitting in the pews, we got a problem. We got a big problem. And a lot of people say that the church of tomorrow is our children, and I've always thought that was a wrong statement. The church of today should be our children. Get them involved. Do special things for them. Do amazing youth ministry and children's ministry, because we used to have that here, and I know we still do. I think I'm going to make a point to be here for the Star Wars VBS, because that just absolutely looks cool. You're going to hear about that in a little bit, because huge Star Wars fan. But I know what this church means. And growing up here was awesome. I was so involved in the children's ministry. I was so involved in the teen ministry. Let me tell you, my senior year in high school, I sat down one time and I thought, you know what? How many hours a week do I spend as a non-staff member, just a high school student here in this building? So I counted Sunday school and I counted church, because we just had one service kind of this hour, and then we had a Sunday night service and we had a Wednesday night service. And so I think, okay, that's blah, 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 so many hours. But we also used to have a Bible bowl. We used to study our Bible, and then we would go and we would compete with other churches, and it was so much fun. So I did Bible Bowl. We had a drama ministry. We had a youth choir, and I sang in that, but I was in the back, so they made sure people didn't hear me sing. But some of you may remember the Buffoons for Christ, the clown ministry. I was involved with that. I added up all these hours, and I spent 12 and a half hours a week here at church. And I loved church. I loved Galapagos Christian Church. I loved what we were doing. I loved the fact that we had people, we had leaders that poured into us as students, that said, hey, it's not just, ministry isn't just about being an adult. We're going to put kids on stage and we're going to let them sing. We're going to give them an opportunity to play instruments. We're going to give them ministry opportunities to go other churches and represent us and to lead people to Christ. What you all did for me is why I do what I do today. In fact, I remember my junior year in high school, I remember a teacher coming up to me and another member of this youth group, and this teacher came up to us and he said, would you consider helping lead our FCA group at Gallia Academy? And I'm like, okay, what's that mean? He's like, hey, we'll meet in like every other week, and I'll give you, of course, this is way before the internet. I know there was a time before the internet, but he said, I'll give you a magazine like once a month, once every other month, and it'll have devotions in it, and you can lead the devotions, and you pray, you do whatever. Well, the other student from this youth group, he was on the football team. He was a little bit more popular. He had a personality that was larger than life, and just everybody loved him, and then I kind of was in his shadow. But we led that group. And it was so great. We had so much fun. He was a year older than me. He graduated. And then my senior year, I kind of led it on my own. And go ahead with the picture. I found my old yearbooks, which is always embarrassing. But those are our yearbooks. And I look back now, 20, blah, 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 so many years ago. I am proud of what we did. Because we didn't just do ministry here in these pews. We did it in the school. And we had a teacher who thought it was important enough to give us the opportunity to do that. 28 years later, I've kind of gone full circle. Because when I left here, when I graduated here, I went to Kentucky Christian College. Now it's the university. I got my degree in youth ministry. I worked for 24 years in 2 different churches, which is amazing that I was blessed. One church almost 11 years, one church a little over 12 years. And now, full-time, I work for FCA. And it is so amazing when I look at how God has been able to bless the things that I've gotten to do, but it's because of people like yourselves who have poured into me and who have encouraged me and who have been there for me. But FCA, every year, they do a theme. And their theme is that one word or that one concept that they want to pour into people, something that hopefully you'll catch, something that maybe next week you'll remember one word that I said today. And I pray that that word is greater. What does greater mean? Well, greater in John 3, verse 30 says this. It says, he must become greater and I must become less. So if I work in a ministry where I lead athletes and coaches to Christ, how do I tell them that you have to be less and he has to be greater to be successful? That doesn't make sense, does it? Do you want to be greater? I hope so. I hope we all strive to be greater. Now, let me kind of do a little asterisk, a little footnote. I understand Joe said that in the little buckets that your kids have, I guess there's some kind of follow along for the students, for the children. I have no idea what that looks like, so jump in, follow along. We're going to put stuff on the screen as we continue. So coloring sheets maybe. So I don't know. You follow along however best you feel the need. But I believe the Apostle John gave us 4 ways how we can be greater. And FCA, we're talking about this all year long. We're taking this message everywhere that we can. The first way is that you have a greater potential. You see, the Apostle John writes in John chapter 8, verse 12, he says this. He says, Jesus said that I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. You see, when Jesus said this was a pretty bold statement. Because you don't see a lot of people in the world walking around saying, hey, I am the light. That almost sounds egotistical, right? That almost sounds like, hey, kind of shrink your head a little bit. You're not really that strong. But Jesus says, I am the light. He got people's attention. In fact, he probably rubbed them the wrong way. They're thinking, who is this guy? How dare he say something like that? But then Jesus goes on and he kind of flashes his resume. He flashes his stat card and he says, listen, let me tell you why I just said that. Because in verse 14, Jesus says this, even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you have no idea where I came from or where I am going. You judge by human standards, and I pass judgment on no one. But if I do judge, my decisions are true because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who has sent me. So Jesus basically tells these guys who he just upset by saying, I am the light. He said, listen, I know me. I know where I came from. I know who sent me. And you got nothing on me. So listen. Now, let me ask you this question. And of course, this is rhetorical, so think about it. Has anybody ever told you you have potential? Has anybody ever said you have potential? Probably most of us have had somebody in our lives saying, hey, you've got the potential to be great. You've got the potential to go change the world. You've got the potential to go score 100 touchdowns, to make 10,000 buckets, to hit 100 home runs. You've got a potential to do amazing things in business. See, as an athlete, that may be trying a new sport. You're fast. You've got the potential to be a great cross-country runner. Just try it, right? You can catch a ball like it's nobody's business. Why don't you go be a wide receiver, right? You can, whatever it is for you. You've got the potential. Go try something new. Or once you're in that new, how about we're going to move you to a new position? You know what? Maybe we're going to try you over here because I think you could be great over here. Or how about a new play? How many times have we heard a coach say, hey, this play right here, this is it. This is the one, regardless of the sport. I'm telling you, we're going to put up points. The other team can't stop us. This has the potential to be amazing. But as an employee, maybe you're past the point of your athletic prowess, right? Maybe as an athlete, maybe it's learning a new task. Maybe it's doing a new job. Maybe it's learning a new system. Somebody's telling you this is going to be better than it was. How about as a parent? I mean, let's be honest. We're all learning this on the fly, right? For the most part. I mean, none of us know what we're really doing. I've got 3 teenagers now. It's crazy. I got 1 in college and 2 that are sophomores that are twins. And my twin son went to his first prom last night. There is no book of how to handle a prom when your son goes to prom for the first time, okay? It's crazy, right? Thankfully, my daughter had 0 desire to go, so I can wait another year for her. But there is no book. We see people, hey, you've got the potential to be great parents. I've worked with a lot of younger couples who are married who have helped do youth ministry with me. And for whatever reason, maybe they've decided they wanted to wait later in life to have kids, or maybe they've struggled to have kids. But I've always said, hey, the way you love on other people's kids, the way you're there, the way you go on church camps, the way you go on retreats, the way you teach them here, the way you love them, I know you're going to be great parents. But see, what if we realize that the potential we think we have, the thing that's right in our grasp, what if the only potential we have is to let Him be our light? What if no matter what we think we're good at, we understand that He's the one that's good at it? Let me say this. There's not enough talent. There's not enough good works. There's not enough church attendance. There's not enough hard work that can keep us in the light. It's only Him. He's the one who gives us potential. John 14, verse 6, Jesus says, I am the way, I'm the truth, and I'm the life. And nobody comes to the Father except through me. If you want to have a greater potential, understand that it's nothing you're doing. It's the fact of what He's doing. But see, if you understand the great potential, you understand that there's a greater promise. And in John 3:16, for God so loved the what? World, that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Jesus has this very powerful conversation with Nicodemus. And if you don't know who Nicodemus is, and I'm hoping that maybe you do, maybe you've heard his name before, it's a little different of a name, but Nicodemus was one of the smartest of the smart guys. He was somebody who knew the law of Moses, who knew it backwards and forwards. He was somebody that if you had a question and you said, hey, Nicodemus, I'm confused on this law, what do I do? You'd go to this guy. But this guy was the one who went to Jesus and said, dude, you're new on the scene. Your ministry is just beginning, and I know the Old Testament, but I don't get some of the things you're talking about. Jesus was the one who was teaching the smart guy the smart stuff. Nicodemus was just there absorbing it. But Jesus says the most powerful verse in the Bible. Show of hands, how many of you guys have known that verse since you were a kid? Most of us, right? And the kids in the room are like, yeah, since I was a kid. We've known that verse forever. And if Carolyn Casey was here this morning, she just texted me a few minutes ago saying she was not feeling well. She's going to watch this later. She'd be sitting over here, and I would probably run over and give her a hug and say, Carolyn, I love you because you taught me that. And you taught how many kids in this church that verse. And not just that verse from memory, but you taught it how to live it. You taught it what it was, how important it was to us. But be honest. Haven't we said it a lot? John 3:16, right? Everybody knows it. For God so loved the world, right? John 3:16, for God so loved the world. We've said it so much, sometimes I feel that it's become saturated. Sometimes I think we see it and it's like, it's just John 3:16 again. I can move on. Truth be told, how many of you guys love watching football? And you watch a team drive down the field. Yep, good boys. I see hands in the back already, right? I love football. You boys, we'll pal up, all right? Love football, right? You watch a team drive down the field, right? Either they get a touchdown and are lining up for the extra point, or they didn't quite get that last first down, and so they line up for a field goal. And you look in the end zone, right? Because you've got the long shots. The cameras always do the whole field, and you see the uprights, but what else do you see? You see a what? John 3:16. You see a banner that's down there in the end zone somewhere. Some person, almost every game, I don't care if it's college or if it's NFL, you see that banner. And how many times have we thought, be honest, right? We're in church, right? How many times have we thought, I wish they put that banner away so they could kick this field goal, right? We're church people. We see it everywhere. But we should get excited. We should go into a frenzy when we hear that verse. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes will be saved. That verse should get us riled up. And Jesus told Nicodemus that. But then he told Nicodemus one more verse. And in verse 17 it says, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save it. How many times have we heard people say, you Christians, all you want to do is condemn people. All you want to do is judge people. There's a hell because people make mistakes, and all you want to do is send people there. That's not why Jesus came. Jesus came to love us. Jesus came to show us the other way. Jesus came to save us. So he told Nicodemus this amazing 2-verse section that he didn't stop. Jesus didn't say, all right, Nicodemus, I got to stop. This is verse 17. This is verse 18. This is verse 20. No, he said it back-to-back sentences. Nicodemus, God sent his Son, not to condemn the world, but to save it. Let's get excited about it. You know what's something that's really exciting? There were 2 events that happened in World Series. Now, these World Series happened a long time ago, okay? 1926 and 1932, all right? There was a legendary baseball figure. Anybody recognize him? Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was legendary. And still today, his stories are being told, not just in places like this, but all across the world in every venue, right? 1926, there was the news of this little boy named Johnny Sylvester. Johnny had attracted some kind of life-threatening disease, and obviously medicine back then was way different than it is today, but poor little Johnny was on his deathbed. And news had gotten to the Babe during the World Series. They were playing the Cardinals. And news had got to him that this little boy was a fan and was dying. And so the Babe said, let's do something for this little boy. So he got all the Yankees to sign a ball. He got all the Cardinals to sign a different ball. And both balls were sent to this hospital room for Johnny and his family. The Babe wrote 3 words on the ball. Knock a homer. Now, he actually said, I will, but that had all been edged off and you can't see that. But knock a ball, supposedly, whoever owns that ball today, you can still see that phrase, knock a ball. The Babe promised little Johnny he would hit a home run for him. So in Game 4 of the World Series in 1926, the Babe comes up to bat, drives the first one over the fence. Second at bat, hits the second one farther than the first. The third at bat, the Babe hits one over 530 feet. Darn near cleared the stadium. All because he went in to knock a homer for that little boy. Crowd went nuts when they found out what was going on. 6 years later, the Yankees are back in the World Series. This time they're playing the Cubs. And this time, it's a pretty heated battle. Well, the Cubs players, when Babe came up to bat in this one inning, they were jeering him, they were making fun of him, they were taunting him, they were, saying, you stink, you're not going to hit a ball. They knew he was Babe Ruth, but they were trying to get into his head. Babe took 2 balls and 2 strikes. So the Babe steps out of the box, and legend has it that he raised the bat. People that were there said he didn't raise the bat. He had the bat in the other hand, and he points, as you can see in that picture, he's holding the bat, and he raises 2 fingers. Now, some thinks that maybe he was just taunting him because he had 2 strikes. Some people think he was taunting him because he had two balls. Either way, he points to center field at Wrigley Field. He steps back in the box, he raises the bat, the ball comes in, and then the ball goes out. Way out. He called his shot. And to this day, we all want to step into a box and call our shot the way Babe Ruth did that day, right? But again, when the stories were told of what happened, the crowds went into a frenzy. It was amazing. How are we when athletes call their shots? It's pretty cool, right? Of course, now the media, they talk to athletes, hey, tell us about the game this week. You got the big rivalry coming up, blah, blah, blah. We're going to beat them by 100. You're not going to beat them by 100, right? They beat them by 100 and we go crazy for it. They did. He lived out his word, right? He did score a touchdown like he promised. All these kind of things. Do you realize that Jesus called his shot with Nicodemus? And we should be more excited about that than we should a home run in a World Series. We should be more excited that Jesus was accurate when he said, God sent his son to save the world, more than we should be on winning a trophy because some athlete said he was going to. See, we've got great potential. And we've got a greater promise, but we have a greater performance. John records in John chapter 15, verse 5, he says, Jesus is saying this, he says, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Can I ask you a question? And you're sitting where I did, and you're a part of a church that means so much to me, so we're going to say that we're family today, okay? And if I don't know you, then I would love to get to know you, right? But let's kind of be honest. But I want you to think about this question, right? Who do you play for? Who do you play for? And that's really not that hard of a question, but sometimes it is a hard question. Because if I ask an athlete, who do you play for? An athlete may say, well, I play for myself. Because when I get on that court, I want to do the best that I can do. Okay, that's great. A player may say, well, I play for my coach. Or the player may say, well, I play for my parents, because maybe this player understands how much money we're invested in our kids, right? To do travel ball, to do travel tournaments, to just come play this sport. They say, hey, I want to make my parents happy. And we've all seen athletes who do something great on the field or on the court and look up to their parents, and their parents are crying because they made that bucket, and they're so proud that their parents are happy for them. Some athletes may say, I play for my team. How about let's change it up? How about a musician? Who would a musician play for? Some may say the audience. I play because I want to make the audience happy. Some may say the director, right? If you're in a big orchestra. Some may say the band itself. Some may say their label. They want to make more money. How about an academic? Somebody who cares about their grades, who cares about getting more academic achievements. They say, I just want to build my resume. I play daily for my field because I'm in this field and I want to be the most educated person I can be to help everybody. And so I want more plaques on my wall and I'm going to keep studying. That's who I play for. An employee may say, I play for the paycheck. That's why I get it. That's why I go to work every day, because I just want the paycheck. Some may say, because I care about my business. I care about my vocation. Some may say, I play for the team around me, my coworkers. How about you parents? Who do you play for? I think most of us would say we play for our kids. We do everything we can for our family. And of course, if you take the word play out and say, I do, I work, right? Who is and what is it that you play for? What is it that you do everything that you do for? How many of us play for Him? How many of us are an athlete and we take the field or we take the court for Him? Capital H, that's for God, for Jesus. How many of us who go to work every day for Him? How many of us study? Students, good grades are important. Get them. How many of you guys study for your grades for Jesus? If you're in high school, you're probably saying, I'm not me, because I didn't, right? I wanted to graduate. But everything we do, are we doing it for Him? You see, go back to the verse I just read. This idea of a vine feeding the branches. Everybody in Israel, when Jesus said this statement, would have completely understood what He was talking about, because they had been through a vineyard. They had seen vineyards. And we've got a vineyard in Richmond, Kentucky, where I live, and they've kind of turned it into this big fancy restaurant, and they have a lot of special dinners and stuff, and I've been out there many times. But this concept of this vineyard is so beautiful. because you've got this real thick vine that kind of goes from trellis to trellis, and it's kind of going all over the place, and then off of that are the thinner branches, and then the thinner branches are then the grapes. And it's this beautiful concept, this beautiful idea that without the vine, nothing grows. There's no fruit at the end. There's no branches coming off. The vine is the most important part. And Jesus said, I am that vine. Brady said he was 27. At that point, he had won 3 Super Bowl championships, 3 trophies. How many did he finish with? 7. 6 in New England, 1 in Tampa. Okay? He won more trophies than anybody. I mean, and he did it. And he never really called his shot saying, this is what I'm going to keep doing this. But he can be, despite the college he went to, right? We're not going to talk about that place up north. But despite where he's from, he did do it better than anybody. But did you hear, and I know I started it a little early, but he said, there's got to be something more. He finished with 7 Vince Lombardi trophies. He finished with 5 Super Bowl MVPs. He finished with 3 NFL league MVPs and hundreds of records and billions of dollars. And unfortunately, his marital situation was all over the media. But he said, the only thing that really makes me happy is my friends. I pray and I hope that in his 24 years in the NFL, I pray that somebody introduced him to Jesus. I pray that one of his teammates said, hey, Tom, listen, I know you're a fierce competitor, and I know you take this serious, and I know you want to win another trophy, and I know the rings are important, and I know all of these things are there, but dude, there is something more important, and it's not another trophy. And I've read about a lot of athletes who have come to know Jesus, and I've read about a lot of athletes who are in locker rooms who share their faith with others. I've yet to read anything that Tom has come to a relationship with Jesus. And I pray that in his retirement, he's got some free time. I pray somebody talks to him. But let me ask you, who do we play for? Do we play for the trophies? Do we play to just keep winning? Do we play for being the best in our vocation? Or do we play for the vine? John 15, verse 8 says, this is my Father's glory, that you bear fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Whatever you play, whatever your gift, whatever your talents, are you performing for the right source? Are you performing for the vine? Are you giving everything you have for Jesus? I want to end with this. There's a greater purpose. We all have a greater purpose. The Apostle John, he kind of hits this point with John chapter 17, verse 8. And in this section, the Apostle John is talking about and writing this imagery of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's just a few hours away to be put on trial and go to the cross. But here he is in the garden praying so fervently, so seriously, so intently that his sweat is becoming like blood. And he prays, and in the middle of this prayer, he says this, Father, you gave them, or I gave them the words that you gave me, and they accepted them. Who was them? Who was they? It's his disciples. It's the people who said, hey, I want to follow. Hey, I want to not just listen, but I want to do more. I want to be a part of this. Imagine Jesus pausing before he's getting ready to go through this gruesome, awful weekend. And he's saying, God, listen, you asked me to share, and I did, and these people they may be a little scared right now, but they're about to do amazing things. They're about to go change the world. I'm so blessed when I look at these pews and some of your faces and faces that aren't with us anymore who have come before you. And I kind of started off with this, but I am thankful for those who poured into me. I'm thankful for the leadership. I'm thankful for the elders. First service, Joe presented me with a program of the day I was ordained to be a minister back in 2001. And that threw me off. I was not expecting that. And my parents were here for service, and we were laughing and going through it and seeing some of the names who were up on that stage with me, former elders, 2 of which who have gone on to be with the Lord now. But that means so much. And for 26 years now, been able to say, I'm a pastor. I'm a youth pastor. I'm now a sports pastor. I'm now a missionary, because that's kind of what FCA is. I understand my purpose. And this has always kind of been my purpose. But let me tell you about the purpose of FCA real quick. You see, FCA's purpose, their mission statement is this: to lead every coach and every athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and the church. You see, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, people that I work with, we don't just want to say, hey, coach, here's a Bible, go read it. We want to disciple that coach. Hey, coach, can I have 5 minutes with your players? Can I share a quick devotion with them and then walk away? We want to make sure that they understand who Jesus is. We want to make sure not just that they understand who Jesus is, but they believe in him. They confess their sins and they confess him as their Lord and Savior, that we then baptize them, that we then say, hey, you have taken a huge step. Now let me introduce you to a church that is going to pour into you like the way the Galapagos Christian Church did in my life. That's our purpose. That's what we want to do. Now, we do that through huddles. We do that. Imagine this. I work in 3 counties, okay, in central Kentucky. And it's not Lexington, but I'm just south and east of Lexington. I have 6 high schools, 9 middle schools, and 19 elementary schools. Okay, in central Kentucky, that's a lot. And if you do the math, and my math was a little bit suspect, don't look at my grades way back, but I think that's like 20,000 kids, over 20,000 kids, okay? Coaches and athletes, people that we want to be able to go in. And a huddle looks like this. A huddle, we say, hey, can we go in before school? Do we have a coach or do we have a teacher that wants to do a Bible study? Maybe once a week, maybe once a month. Sometimes we'll do coaches' breakfasts, which is a really cool thing where we'll just invite coaches from, let's say, Gallia Academy, because that's where I went. Let's say we say, hey, this Friday we're going to do a coaches' breakfast. And coaches, if you want to come and have a breakfast and share a quick prayer with us, we'll pray for you. Come grab a sandwich and head off to class. Or if you're not even in the school, head off to work. Our coaches, a lot of our schools, they love that. They're so blessed by that. We have a school that's in Winchester, Kentucky. It's one of my schools that I get to work with. They have a tennis coach who's also a math teacher. Every morning, I did say, every morning, 5 days a week, he opens up his classroom and he's got students in his group, in his huddle that come and they have a Bible study. They take turns. One student may do this, one student may do this. On Wednesday, they do Worship Wednesdays. So I called him a couple weeks ago and I said, hey, coach, I said, because I try to circulate. 1 week or one day I'm at this school and another week I'm at this school. Some days I'm speaking, some days I'm just taking pictures in the back. But I said, you need anything? He's like, yeah, how about some donuts? I said, done. I brought him 3 dozen donuts. So I walked up to the school, and it's a school. They've got 3,000 students in 4 grades. Big school. So I walked up to the front door, and some of the students I recognized are standing out front. And I said, hey, guys, what's up? And, I'm high-fiving them, whatever, giving them hugs, whatever. And I said, what are we doing out here? I said, how come we're not in Mr. Hines' room? And they said, this morning we decided we're going to set up out front. And as kids get off the bus, we're going to be singing. One of the kids brought his guitar, and we're going to pass out donuts. And they showed me this sign that had said, hey, would you like someone to pray for you today? And so as kids got off the bus, before they walked into the school, here's this group of several kids and a couple teachers standing there just saying, hey, welcome to school. It's Wednesday. Have a donut. Can we pray for you? And these students led that. And it was so cool. And I got to take some pictures, and I'm standing off to the back. And I had a couple other kids in the school that I knew who came in who couldn't be there because they rode the bus, and they were getting there late. And I'm like, dude, this is so awesome. I'm like, you have no idea. It is so cool, the ministry that's happening in central Kentucky, in some of the schools that I get to be a part of. Through huddles, through camps. The end of June, I will be on the campus of Western Kentucky University. It's where my oldest son is a student at right now. But we will be there hosting an FCA camp. There'll be 600 to 700 students there to worship, to play games. It's called Leadership Camp, but it is amazing. It is so cool to see these kids come in. We also do individual discipleship with teams. We understand our purpose. FCA knows that we need to take the ministry of Jesus out. We need to lead every coach and every athlete to Jesus. Without you pouring into me, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. Last year, your missionary committee reached out, kind of heard what I was doing, and they said, hey, we want to make you a missionary. which is kind of really what I do. And if it wasn't for churches like yourselves and individuals, I know there's some individuals in the room that even are a supporter of mine. Without people like yourselves pouring into me through prayer, through financial support, through constant encouragement, I couldn't do what I do. These lives that we're changing probably wouldn't happen without your all support. And I'm so thankful for that. And if you want to talk more about it, if you want to know how you can help, I've got a table in the back and I've got a video shown on the screen. I'd love for you to stand, grab a flyer, grab my card, call me, give me an excuse to come back to Gwinnett County because I love coming home. But we know our purpose. And I want to end with this. What's your purpose? Why are you here today? Did you come because it's Sunday? Did you come because it's that day of the week you're supposed to be in church? Because the pew may fall apart if you're not in it, right? What's your purpose? Is your purpose to change the world? Is your purpose to lead somebody to Christ? Is your purpose to give everything that you can for the vine? Do you want to be greater? I pray that you do. I hope that you do. Do you want to have a greater potential with a greater promise? So you will have a greater performance for the ultimate greater purpose. It all goes back to what John said. John the Baptist told his disciples, who were getting a little bit riled because here's Jesus' ministry beginning and John the Baptist's ministry, who'd already been going, and his guys were like, hey, what's going on over here? These guys are stealing our thunder. John the Baptist says, no, you guys got it wrong. We're doing what we're doing because we were setting the tone for this. That's my cousin. And let me tell you, I was in the womb and I jumped for excitement. I couldn't wait for him to be born. So guys, listen, 8 words and memorize these. You want to be greater? He must be greater. He must be greater. I must become less.